The wedding dress felt like a costume. Heavy white silk that cost more than most people earned in a year, and she stood in the center of a bedroom that looked like it belonged in a palace, watching her new husband sign documents at his mahogany desk. He hadn't looked at her once since they left the ceremony 2 hours ago. The guest list had been 300 people. She knew exactly 5 of them. Ji-Hoon knew everyone. They smiled at him. They bowed to him. They whispered about him when they thought no one was listening. The youngest son of the Kim family, 29 years old, cold eyes, colder reputation. They called him the Ice Prince behind his back, and other names she tried not to think about. Names that came with blood. She twisted the diamond ring on her finger. It was beautiful, flawless, chosen by someone else. Everything about today had been chosen by someone else. The flowers, the venue, the vows she spoke in Korean she'd practiced 100 times but barely understood. The only thing she'd chosen was agreeing to this in the first place, and even that felt like something that had happened to her rather than something she'd decided. Like watching herself from outside her body, like being a passenger in her own life. Ji-Hoon's pen scratched across paper. The sound was very loud in the quiet room. She could hear her own breathing, could hear the rustle of silk when she shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Her shoes hurt. She'd been wearing them for 6 hours. She wanted to take them off, but didn't know if she was allowed. Didn't know what the rules were in this new life she'd just stepped into. "Your room is across the hall." His voice cut through the silence like a blade. Still, he didn't look up. Just kept signing papers. She watched his hand move across the page. Efficient. Controlled. Everything about him was controlled. "I'm sorry." The words came out smaller than she intended. "Your bedroom. It's the 3rd door on the left. The staff moved your belongings this afternoon." He set down one document and picked up another. "You'll find everything you need. If something is missing, tell Mrs. Choi. She manages the household." The air left her lungs slowly. "We're not—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "This is a business arrangement." Now he did look up, and she wished he hadn't. His eyes were dark and empty, like looking into a well with no bottom. "My father required that I marry. You needed security and citizenship. We both got what we needed. That's all this is. Your mother said, 'My mother is dead.'" The words were flat. Final. What she wanted doesn't matter anymore. But it did matter. It mattered so much she could barely breathe. She'd met Mrs. Kim 2 years ago when the agency placed her as a private nurse. Stage 4 cancer. 6 months to live according to the doctors. But she'd made it 18. 18 months of sitting beside a woman who talked about her son like he was something precious and broken. Who showed her photos of a boy with a rare smile. Who held her hand during the bad nights and said, "You remind me of what goodness looks like, what I wish for him." The marriage proposal had come from Mrs. Kim 3 weeks before she died. "He needs someone who sees light, someone not from this world. Promise me you'll help him. Promise me you'll try." And she'd promised because how do you say no to a dying woman who'd been kind to you? How do you say no when you're 25 and alone in a foreign country and so tired of being invisible? But standing here now in this enormous room with this stranger who wore her dead mother's ring around his neck on a chain, she wondered what she'd actually agreed to, what she'd actually promised. "I'll have Mrs. Choi show you the house tomorrow." Ji-Hoon returned to his papers. "There are rules. I'll have them written out for you. Don't go into the East Wing. Don't ask questions about my work. Don't go anywhere without security. We'll attend family functions together. You'll play the role of my wife in public. In private, we live separate lives." "For how long?" Her voice sounded very far away. "As long as necessary." He signed the final paper and stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "I have business tonight. I'll be gone for a few days. Maybe a week. Mrs. Choi will take care of you." He walked past her toward the door. She could smell his cologne. Something expensive and cold. He paused with his hand on the doorknob. For a moment she thought he might say something else. Something human. Something that would make this feel less like drowning. "Welcome to the family." Then he was gone. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like the rest of her life locking into place. She stood alone in the wedding dress for a long time. Outside the window, the estate stretched out like something from a movie. Gardens with marble fountains, security gates, men in dark suits patrolling the grounds. This was her home now, this fortress, this beautiful prison. She looked down at her hands. The ring caught the light and threw rainbows across the wall. Such a pretty lie. Her bedroom across the hall was twice the size of her old apartment. King bed with silk sheets, walk-in closet already filled with clothes she hadn't chosen, bathroom with heated floors and a tub big enough to swim in. Everything perfect, everything empty. She sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing the dress, and tried to remember why she'd said yes. Tried to remember Mrs. Kim's warm smile and kind eyes. Tried to believe this was the right choice. But all she could think about was the way Ji-Hoon had looked at her. Or rather, the way he hadn't. Like she was furniture. Like she was paperwork. Like she was anything except a person who'd just promised her life to him. The first night in her new home, she didn't sleep. Just lay in the dark listening to the sound of the house settling around her. Somewhere in the east wing, a door opened and closed. Footsteps on marble. Voices speaking rapid Korean she couldn't quite catch. This was a house that was alive even in the middle of the night. A house with secrets in every corner and blood in the foundation. Mrs. Kim had told her some of it near the end when the morphine made her honest. "My husband built an empire. My sons inherited a curse. I just want one of them to escape it." But Ji-Hoon didn't want to escape. He'd walked into that curse like putting on a coat, wore it like armor, and she was now chained to him for reasons she didn't fully understand. For a promise to a ghost, for a hope that maybe somewhere under all that ice was the boy from the photographs. The one who smiled. 3 days passed before she saw him again. She spent the time learning the house. Mrs. Choi was a small woman in her 50s, with efficient hands and careful English. She showed her the kitchen, where she wasn't expected to cook, the dining room where she'd eat alone most nights, the library full of books in Korean and English, the sitting room where family gathered on Sundays. Mr. Ji-Hoon expects punctuality on Sundays. 10 o'clock. Formal dress. You smile and say little. The family is traditional. Traditional, she repeated, and Mrs. Choi's expression said everything the word didn't. You are American. They will make allowances, but you must be careful. The family does not forget mistakes. Mrs. Choi handed her a folder. These are the rules Mr. Ji-Hoon wanted you to have. The list was typed, single-spaced, 2 pages long, where she could go, where she couldn't, what time meals were served, what events required her presence, how to address family members, what topics to avoid. At the bottom, in handwriting that looked angry, a single line, "Do not embarrass me." She read it 3 times sitting in the library that smelled like leather and money. Read it until the words blurred together into one big rule. Disappear unless needed. Be a ghost. Be a prop. Be anything except herself. On the 4th day, Ji-Hoon came home. She heard the commotion from her bedroom around midnight. Car doors, voices, footsteps heavy on the stairs. She stood by her door listening, heard him walk past toward the master bedroom at the end of the hall, heard his door close. The house went quiet again. He didn't knock on her door, didn't check if she was settling in, didn't acknowledge her existence at all. The first Sunday family dinner was exactly as terrible as she'd feared. The Kim family estate was even larger than the house she now lived in. The dining room table sat 20 people. Ji-Hoon's father sat at the head, a man in his 60s with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. His second wife, a woman who'd never bothered to introduce herself, sat to his right. Various aunts and uncles and cousins filled the other seats. And her, at Ji-Hoon's side, trying to remember which fork to use. So, this is the American nurse. Ji-Hoon's father studied her like an artifact in a museum. My late wife had unique taste in her final days. Father, Ji-Hoon's voice held a warning. I'm simply making conversation with my new daughter-in-law. But his smile didn't reach his eyes. Tell me, do you understand what this family does? She felt Ji-Hoon go tense beside her. I understand it's business, sir. Business. Yes. That's one word for it. He took a sip of wine. My late wife was always optimistic. She thought love could redeem anything. Save anyone. I assume she filled your head with similar notions? She was kind to me. Her voice was steady, even though her hands shook in her lap. That's all that mattered. Something flickered in the old man's eyes. Not quite approval, but close. Kind. Yes. She was that. Too kind for this family. In the end, he turned his attention back to his plate. See that you last longer than one dinner, girl. Ji-Hoon has already disappointed me enough. The rest of the meal passed in strained silence. She picked at food she couldn't taste. Felt the weight of eyes on her from every direction. Felt Ji-Hoon's coldness like a wall beside her. When it was finally over and they drove back to the house, she expected him to say something, to acknowledge what had just happened. Instead, he disappeared into his study and didn't emerge. This became the pattern. Days where she existed alone in the house. Nights where she heard him come and go like a stranger. Sunday dinners, where she performed being a wife, while he performed tolerance. They lived like ghosts in the same space, never quite touching, never quite real to each other. Mrs. Choi tried to fill the silence. He has always been this way, since his mother died, since before that, maybe, the things he has seen, the things he has done, they change a person. What things? She asked once, and Mrs. Choi's face closed like a door. You do not want to know. Trust me on this. But she did want to know, wanted to understand the man she'd married, the man who wore his mother's ring but wouldn't speak her name, the man who kept her at arm's length like she might burn him. She started paying attention, noticing things, the way security rotated shifts every 6 hours, the way certain cars came and went at odd times, the way Ji-Hoon returned some nights with the blood on his cuffs he thought no one saw, the way the house had a medical room in the East Wing she wasn't supposed to know about. This was a house that dealt in violence, in power, in fear. And she lived in the center of it like a bird in a cage, singing songs no one heard. 2 months passed, then 3, then 6. She learned the rhythms of her new life, learned to fill her days with books and walks through the garden under the watchful eyes of security, learned to eat alone without crying, learned to sleep in a bed that felt too big for one person, learned to be invisible, even to herself. Ji-Hoon became more shadow than man, sometimes gone for weeks at a time, sometimes home, but locked in his study or the East Wing. They passed each other in hallways like strangers. He never asked about her day, never asked if she needed anything, never asked anything at all. She told herself it was enough, that she'd known what this was, that she'd gone into this with open eyes. But late at night when the house was quiet and she couldn't sleep, she admitted the truth. She'd hoped. Despite everything Mrs. Kim had told her about her son's damage, despite the coldness in his eyes on their wedding night, despite every sign that pointed to exactly this outcome, she'd hoped he might see her, might want to see her, might remember that under all the ice and blood, he was still human. But hope was a dangerous thing. It kept her checking the hallway when she heard his footsteps, kept her glancing up every time a door opened, kept her heart doing stupid things when he walked into a room even though he never looked her direction. She hated herself for it, hated that after 6 months of being treated like furniture, some part of her still waited for him to notice she existed. The first year passed like a dream, or a nightmare. She could never quite decide which. Her Korean improved. She made friends with the kitchen staff who snuck her extra desserts and taught her how to make kimchi. She volunteered at a local community center teaching English to immigrants, something Ji-Hoon's security team shadowed but never prevented. She built a life in the margins of his life, small and quiet, and hers. But the loneliness was a living thing. It had weight and teeth. It sat on her chest at night and whispered that this was all she'd ever be. A contract, a checkbox, a favor to a dead woman. She thought about leaving, thought about it constantly. But where would she go? Back to America with nothing? Her visa was dependent on this marriage. Her entire legal existence in this country was tied to him. And worse, much worse, was the tiny voice that still said, maybe tomorrow, maybe he'll see me tomorrow. Sunday dinners became a special kind of torture. Sitting beside him while he played the role of attentive husband for his father's benefit. His hand on the small of her back, guiding her to her seat. His voice in her ear, asking if she needed anything in a tone that almost sounded real. Then, the drive home in silence. The return to being strangers. She started to understand it wasn't just her he was avoiding. It was everyone. The whole world. He'd built walls so high and thick that nothing could get through. Not affection, not concern, not even basic human connection. He wasn't always like this, Mrs. Choi told her one afternoon while they folded laundry. The older woman had warmed to her over the months, their relationship shifting from employer-staff to something closer to friendship. When he was young, before his mother got sick, he laughed. He played piano. He brought her flowers from the garden. What happened? She held a pillowcase to her chest, breathing in the smell of expensive detergent. He was 12 when the Huang family made their move. They wanted his father's territory. They knew the way to hurt him was through his family. Mrs. Choi's hand stilled. They took his mother, held her for 3 days. When she came back, she was different, broken. The cancer came 6 months later, but really, she died in that warehouse. The pillowcase crumpled in her grip. Ji-Hoon saw it. He was there when they brought her back. His father made him watch what had been done to her. Said he needed to understand the cost of weakness. Needed to see what happened when you loved something in this world. Mrs. Choi's voice dropped to barely a whisper. He was a boy. Just a boy. And they killed that boy that night as surely as they killed his mother. Something cracked open in her chest. Not forgiveness, exactly. But understanding. The kind that hurt worse than anger. Is that why he won't? She couldn't finish. Why he keeps you at a distance? Yes. In his mind, caring for you is painting a target on your back. He thinks coldness keeps you safe. Mrs. Choi met her eyes. He thinks he's protecting you, but really, he's just hurting you both. That night, she knocked on his study door for the first time in a year. She heard movement inside, papers rustling, then silence, then his voice, surprised. Come in. He sat behind his desk surrounded by screens and documents. He'd loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves. She could see a scar on his forearm she'd never noticed before. A thin white line that disappeared under the fabric. He looked tired, actually tired in a way she'd never seen him, like the armor had slipped. Is something wrong? He was already reaching for his phone. Is it the family? Security? No, nothing's wrong, She stepped into the room. It smelled like him. Coffee and that cold cologne, and something else. Gunpowder, maybe. Fear, maybe. I wanted to talk to you. He set down the phone slowly. Suspicion crossed his face. About what? About anything. Everything. Nothing. She wrapped her arms around herself. We've been married a year and I don't know you. I don't know your favorite color or what you drink besides coffee or if you sleep at all. I don't know anything except that you're very good at pretending I don't exist. His jaw tightened. I told you what this was. I know what you told me. I'm asking what this is. She took another step closer. Mrs. Kim asked me to help you, to try, but I can't help someone who won't even look at me. I can't try when you've already decided I'm not worth the effort. It's not about worth. The words came out sharp, defensive. You don't understand. Then help me understand, please, because I'm drowning here and you're standing on the shore watching. Her voice cracked despite her best effort. I wake up every day in a house full of people, and I'm completely alone. I go to sleep every night wondering what I did wrong, what I'm doing wrong, why I'm not enough to even warrant a conversation. He stood abruptly, turned away from her toward the window. His shoulders were rigid. You should go. Why? Why should I go? Give me one good reason that isn't you being afraid. He spun back, and for the first time in a year, she saw something real in his face. Anger, hurt, fear, all of it right there on the surface. You want a reason? Fine, because every person I've ever cared about has been used against me, because love is a weakness in this world, and weakness gets you killed, because I watched my mother die slowly after what they did to her, and I will not watch that happen to anyone else. I will not watch it happen to you. His hands were shaking, actually shaking. You being invisible keeps you safe. You being nothing to me keeps you alive. That's the reason. That's the only reason that matters. The silence after his words was deafening. She could hear her heart beating, could hear the clock on his desk ticking, could hear him breathing hard like he'd just run a marathon. She'd wanted truth and she'd gotten it, but it tasted like ash. You think I don't know danger? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. I grew up in foster care. I know what it's like when adults decide you're not worth protecting. I know what it's like to be hurt by people who should have kept you safe. I know about monsters, Ji-Hoon. They don't just exist in your world. His face shifted. Something softer. Something almost like recognition. The difference is I learned that shutting everyone out doesn't protect you. It just means you face the monsters alone. She moved closer, close enough to see the exhaustion in his eyes, the fear he tried so hard to hide. Your mother asked me to help you. She said you needed someone who still believed goodness existed. And I still do, but I can't fight for someone who won't even try to let me in. He was staring at her now, really staring like he was seeing her for the first time. You don't know what you're asking. I'm asking for a chance, for both of us, for whatever this could be if you stopped being so afraid of it. She reached out slowly and placed her hand over his on the desk. His skin was warm, his fingers tensed under hers, but he didn't pull away. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But we're already in this. We're already married. We're already targets or we're not. The only question is whether we face it together or keep pretending we're strangers. For a moment, just a moment, his hand turned under hers. His fingers started to curl around hers. She felt her breath catch, felt hope bloom in her chest, like spring after winter. His eyes met hers, and they were dark and deep and full of something that looked almost like wanting. Then his phone rang. The spell shattered. He pulled his hand away and grabbed the phone. What? His voice went cold again. Professional. He listened for a few seconds. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at her like the last 5 minutes hadn't happened. Like he'd locked it all back down behind the walls. I have to go. We'll talk later. But they didn't talk later. He was gone for a week. When he came back, the walls were higher than ever, and she was too tired to try to scale them again. The second year was worse than the first, because now she knew there was something under the ice, knew he was capable of feeling even if he wouldn't let himself, knew that the distance between them was a choice he made every single day. That conversation in his study haunted her, the way his hand had almost held hers, the look in his eyes before the phone rang. She replayed it at night when she couldn't sleep. Wondered what would have happened if they'd had 5 more minutes. If he'd been brave enough to try. But he wasn't brave. Not about this. He was brave about everything else. She saw it in glimpses, heard it in the phone calls he took in the hallway outside his study, saw it in the way security treated him with respect that bordered on fear. He walked into danger like most people walked into their kitchen. But the possibility of connection? That terrified him more than any gun. She tried to move on, tried to build a life that didn't center around hoping he'd notice her. She enrolled in online classes, started working toward a degree in social work, spent more time at the community center, made friends with other women in similar situations, though none quite as strange as hers. Wives of businessmen who knew not to ask too many questions. Women who understood the particular loneliness of living in luxury while feeling like nothing. But Sunday dinners dragged her back, sitting beside him, feeling the warmth of his body inches away, watching his hands cut his food, and remembering how they'd almost held hers. It was torture. Beautiful, expensive torture in a dining room that cost more than most people's houses. Ji-Hoon's father watched them with knowing eyes. "Trouble in paradise?" he asked once when Ji-Hoon stepped away to take a call. "We're fine," she lied. "You're a terrible liar. It's almost refreshing." He studied her over his wine glass. "My son is a fool. His mother saw something in you worth protecting, worth trusting. He should honor that. He's honoring it his own way. By making you both miserable? That's not honor. That's cowardice." The old man's voice dropped. "I made him this way. I know that. After his mother, I taught him that love was liability, that feeling anything was weakness. I thought I was preparing him for this life. Turns out, I just broke him differently than the Huang family did." She didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to respond to this man admitting he'd destroyed his own son. "You're still here," he continued. "After 2 years of being invisible, that means something. Either you're a fool or you're strong. Maybe both." He leaned back in his chair. "My advice? Stop waiting for him to come to you. He won't. He can't. If you want something different, you'll have to take it." But what was there to take? She couldn't force him to care, couldn't make him see her as anything other than an obligation, couldn't break down walls he'd spent 17 years building. She was just one person, one very tired person who was running out of reasons to keep trying. The 3rd year started like the first 2, cold, distant, separate lives in the same space. But something had shifted in her. Maybe it was what Ji-Hoon's father said. Maybe it was just exhaustion finally winning. Maybe it was the slow death of hope. But she stopped waiting, stopped checking the hallway when she heard footsteps, stopped looking up when doors opened, stopped letting her heart do stupid things over someone who'd made it very clear he wanted nothing to do with her. She stopped going to Sunday dinners, just refused. When Mrs. Choi came to tell her the car was ready, she said, "I'm not going." "But Mr. Ji-Hoon can expect whatever he wants. I'm not his performing monkey anymore. If he wants me there, he can come ask me himself." Mrs. Choi's eyes went wide. Then she smiled, actually smiled. "I will tell him." 20 minutes later, Ji-Hoon appeared at her door. She was reading in bed, comfortable in sweatpants and an old t-shirt. She didn't get up when he knocked, just said, "It's open." He walked in and stopped. She'd never seen him in her space before. Never seen him look so out of place. He stared at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "We're going to be late." "You're going to be late. I'm staying here." His expression hardened. "This isn't optional. Family dinner is required." "Required by who? You? Your father? The marriage contract your lawyers wrote up?" She set down her book. "I've played nice for 3 years. I've smiled and nodded and pretended. I'm done. If you want a wife at that table, go hire an actress." "You're being childish." "I'm being honest. There's a difference." She met his eyes. "I'm tired, Ji-Hoon. I'm tired of being invisible. I'm tired of being a checkbox on your to-do list. I'm tired of pretending any of this is normal or okay. So no, I'm not going. And you can't make me. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe? Or respect? Hard to tell with all his walls up. My father will ask questions. Tell him the truth. Tell him your contract wife finally figured out she doesn't have to perform for people who don't even see her as human. He stood there for a long moment, jaw working like he was trying to figure out what to say. Finally, he just nodded once and left. She heard him walk down the hallway, heard the front door open and close, heard the car pull away. Then silence. Beautiful, empty silence. She picked up her book and tried to read, but the words blurred together. Her hands were shaking. She'd just burned a bridge she couldn't rebuild. But God, it felt good. It felt like breathing after being underwater for 3 years. Mrs. Choi brought her dinner on a tray that night. Mr. Ji-Hoon called. He said you weren't feeling well and to make sure you ate. That was kind of him. The words tasted bitter. He also said, Mrs. Choi hesitated. He said to tell you that you were right. I don't know what that means, but he seemed different when he said it. She picked at her food after Mrs. Choi left, turning those words over in her mind. You were right. Right about what? That she was invisible? That this wasn't normal? That 3 years of nothing had finally broken something in her? It didn't matter. Words were easy. Action was what mattered, and Ji-Hoon's actions for 3 years had said everything she needed to know. She started sleeping better after that. Started feeling lighter, like she'd been carrying weight she didn't realize was there, and finally set it down. She stopped checking her appearance before leaving her room. Stopped wondering if maybe today would be the day he noticed her. Stopped performing for an audience that wasn't watching. It was liberating in a sad, final kind of way. The death of hope felt a lot like freedom. Ji-Hoon noticed. Of course he noticed. She could feel his attention on her now in a way she never had before. Like refusing to be seen had somehow made her visible. He started being home more. Started appearing in common spaces when she was there. The library while she read. The garden while she walked. The kitchen while she made tea. He never said anything. Just existed in her proximity like he was trying to figure something out. It was unnerving. 3 years of being ignored, and now suddenly he was everywhere. Watching her with those dark eyes like she was a problem he needed to solve. She ignored him right back, turned pages in her book, watered plants, stirred honey into her tea, treated him exactly like he'd treated her. Like furniture, like air, like nothing that mattered. She could see it frustrated him. Good. Let him feel what she'd felt. Let him know what it was like to be invisible to someone you shared space with every single day. Let him understand that indifference, real indifference, was so much worse than anger. 2 weeks after she stopped going to Sunday dinners, she came home from the community center to find Ji-Hoon in the living room. Not in his study, not in the East Wing, in the living room, sitting on the couch like a normal person with a bottle of whiskey and 1 glass. She paused in the doorway. Are you lost? I live here. His voice was rough. He'd already had a few drinks based on the level in the bottle. Could have fooled me. She moved to walk past him toward the stairs. Why did you marry me? The question stopped her. She turned back slowly. He was staring at the glass in his hand, not at her. My mother asked you, but why did you say yes? You could have said no, could have walked away. Why didn't you? She should have kept walking. Should have left him alone with his whiskey and his questions. But something in his voice made her stay. Something raw, something real. Because she asked me to help you. Because I was alone and she offered me family. Because I was stupid enough to think maybe I could make a difference. And now? Now I know better. She crossed her arms. Now I know some people don't want to be helped. They want to drown and they want to drag everyone down with them. He flinched. Actually flinched like she'd hit him. That's not fair. No? You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been honesty. Fair would have been you telling me on our wedding night that you'd never even try. Fair would have been letting me make an informed choice instead of letting me hope for 3 years that maybe you'd see me as human. Her voice was rising, and she didn't care. You want to know what's not fair? Having feelings for someone who treats you like you're invisible. Caring about someone who's made it very clear they don't care back. Waking up every day in a marriage that's just a beautiful prison. His head snapped up. You have feelings for me? She laughed, and it sounded broken even to her own ears. Had. Past tense. 3 years was enough to kill that. Even I'm not that pathetic. You're not pathetic. He stood, unsteady, definitely drunk. You're the strongest person I know. You're good and kind, and you still believe in things, even after everything. He took a step toward her. You're everything I don't deserve. You're right. You don't deserve me. You don't deserve anyone until you deal with whatever is broken inside you. She backed toward the stairs. Enjoy your whiskey, Ji-Hoon. Enjoy your empty house and your walls and your safety. I hope it keeps you warm at night. She went to her room and locked the door, pressed her back against it, and slid down to sit on the floor. Her heart was hammering. Her hands were shaking. She'd said had feelings for him. Past tense, but her body betrayed that lie. Even now, even after everything, even after 3 years of nothing, some stupid part of her still wanted him to chase her up those stairs, still wanted him to bang on her door and demand she let him in, still wanted him to fight for her the way he fought for everything else in his life. But he didn't. Of course he didn't. She heard him moving around downstairs for a while, heard the whiskey bottle being set down harder than necessary, heard footsteps finally heading toward his room, heard his door close, and that was it. Another moment where he could have chosen differently and didn't. She didn't cry. She was done crying over Ji-Hoon Kim. Instead, she got up, got ready for bed, and lay in the dark making plans. Plans that didn't include him. Plans that involved lawyers and divorce papers and figuring out what came next. 3 years was long enough. She'd kept her promise to Mrs. Kim. She'd tried, but you couldn't save someone who didn't want saving, and she couldn't keep drowning while waiting for him to throw her a rope. The next morning, she called a lawyer, a good one who specialized in complex divorces, made an appointment for the following week, started gathering documents, started planning her exit from this beautiful prison, started, for the first time in 3 years, putting herself first. Ji-Hoon was gone when she woke up. Another business trip, according to Mrs. Choi. Part of her wondered if he was avoiding her after last night. Part of her didn't care anymore. She'd said too much, revealed too much. But maybe that was good. Maybe knowing she was done would make the divorce easier. No fighting, no drama, just a clean break and separate lives, which is what they'd been living anyway. She spent the week organizing her life. Found an apartment she could afford near the community center. Small, but hers. Started packing things slowly so no one would notice. Started building a future that didn't include Kim family dinners, or security teams, or living in the shadow of a man who'd rather die than feel something. But the universe had other plans. Because 3 days before her lawyer appointment, a stranger showed up at the estate. Security called ahead, which they never did for family. Mrs. Choi came to find her in the library looking flustered. There's someone here to see Mr. Ji-Hoon, but he's not home and this man is insisting on waiting. He says he's family. What kind of family? He says he's Mr. Kim's son, Mrs. Choi's voice dropped. The other one. She'd heard whispers over 3 years, rumors about Ji-Hoon's father having an affair, a child from that affair that the family didn't acknowledge. But she'd never heard details. Never knew if it was even true. Should we call Ji-Hoon? I tried. He's not answering. This man, he's very insistent, and security seems to know him. They let him through the gate. Curiosity pulled her to her feet. I'll talk to him, see what he wants. The man in the sitting room was stunning. That was the first thought. Tall, well-dressed, with features that were softer than Ji-Hoon's but still unmistakably from the same family. Same dark eyes, same expensive haircut, same aura of controlled power. But where Ji-Hoon was ice, this man was fire. Warm smile, open posture. He stood when she entered and bowed slightly. "You must be the famous wife." His English was perfect, tinged with an accent that suggested time abroad. "I'm Min-woo, the black sheep of the family, though I prefer to think of myself as the colorful." She couldn't help but smile. "I'm not sure there's anything famous about me." "Oh, but there is. The American nurse who married Ji-Hoon, the woman who tamed the Ice Prince." He gestured to the couch. "May I sit? I promise I'm mostly harmless." "Mostly?" She sat across from him, keeping the coffee table between them. "Well, I am a Kim. We're required to be at least a little dangerous. It's in the family bylaws." His smile was infectious, charming in a way that felt both genuine and practiced. "I apologize for showing up unannounced. I've been abroad for several years. Father finally decided I'd been punished long enough and invited me back to the fold. I wanted to meet my brother's wife before the formal family introduction." "Punished for what?" "For being born, mostly. For existing as proof of my father's infidelity. For being the son he made with the woman he loved instead of the woman he married." Min-woo's tone stayed light, but something harder moved under the words. "I'm the family embarrassment, the one they acknowledge but don't claim. I run the legitimate businesses overseas. Hotels, casinos, the pretty face of the empire while my brother handles the ugly reality." She studied him, trying to understand his angle. Why he was really here. What he wanted. "Ji-Hoon never mentioned you." "I'm not surprised. We're not close. Haven't been since we were kids." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "But I've heard about you. Heard you're kind, smart. That you volunteer at the community center teaching English. That you've been essentially living alone for 3 years, while my brother pretends you don't exist." Heat rose to her cheeks. "That's not... Please, I know my brother. I know this family. And I know what happened to our mother." He paused. "My mother was Ji-Hoon's mother's best friend. Did you know that? They grew up together. When father married for business instead of love, my mother was there to comfort both of them. Things got complicated. I'm the result of that complication." "I'm sorry. That must have been difficult." "It was what it was, but it taught me something important." His eyes met hers. Direct. Intense. "It taught me that life is too short to spend it alone. Too short to build walls. Too short to hide from the people who actually want to know you." He smiled again, softer this time. "So here I am, introducing myself to my sister-in-law, hoping maybe we can be friends. You look like you could use one." And he was right. She could use a friend. God, she could use someone who actually talked to her like she was a person. Someone who smiled. Someone who made her feel seen. Friend sounds nice. "Excellent. Then, as your friend, let me take you to dinner. Somewhere that's not this house or a family function. Somewhere you can be yourself instead of whoever they expect you to be." He pulled out his phone. "I know a place. Korean-Italian fusion. Best pasta in Seoul. Say yes. I promise to be entertaining and ask inappropriate questions about my brother that you can refuse to answer." She should say no. Should keep her distance from this stranger who was somehow family. Should wait for Ji-Hoon to come home and handle this. Should be the good wife who didn't go to dinner with other men, even if that wife existed in name only. "Yes," she heard herself say, "dinner sounds perfect." Min-woo's smile could have lit the city. "Fantastic. Tomorrow night, I'll pick you up at 7. After he left, Mrs. Choi found her still sitting in the living room. "That man is dangerous." "He seemed nice?" "Nice like a tiger is nice before it eats you." Mrs. Choi shook her head. "There is history between him and Mr. Ji-Hoon. Bad history. You should be careful." Ji-Hoon doesn't get to dictate who I spend time with. He made that very clear when he made sure we have no relationship at all. She stood, feeling something like defiance burn in her chest. I'm going to dinner with Minwoo tomorrow. If Ji-Hoon has a problem with that, he can come home and tell me himself. But Ji-Hoon didn't come home. Not that night. Not the next day. She got ready for dinner with Minwoo, feeling like she was doing something forbidden and not caring. Wore a dress she'd bought herself. Did her makeup. Let her hair down. Looked in the mirror and saw herself for the first time in months. Not Ji-Hoon's invisible wife. Just herself. Minwoo arrived exactly at 7 in a car that was expensive but not ostentatious. He took one look at her and whistled. Ji-Hoon is an idiot. You don't have to... I'm not being polite, I'm being honest. You're stunning and he's been treating you like furniture. That makes him an idiot by definition. He opened the car door for her. Come on, let's go eat overpriced pasta and talk about anything except my dysfunctional family. The restaurant was beautiful. Intimate lighting, soft music, tables spaced far enough apart for private conversation. Minwoo knew the owner, who greeted him like an old friend and gave them the best table by the window overlooking the city. She tried to remember the last time she'd been somewhere like this. Somewhere that felt special. Every dinner for 3 years had been either alone in the estate or performing at family functions. This felt like living. So, tell me about yourself, Minwoo said after they ordered. The real you, not the version that sits at Sunday dinners smiling politely. What makes you think there's a difference? Because I've been the version of myself other people need my whole life. I recognize the performance. He sipped his wine. Who are you when no one's watching? The question cracked something open. She found herself talking, really talking, about growing up in foster care, about becoming a nurse because she wanted to help people the way no one had helped her, about meeting Mrs. Kim and how that kind woman had seen something in her worth saving, about the promise she'd made and how it had led her here, about the loneliness that had become so normal, she sometimes forgot what connection felt like. Minwoo listened, actually listened, asked questions, responded with his own stories about growing up as the illegitimate son, about being sent to boarding school in Switzerland to keep him away from the family, about building his own empire overseas because he'd never be accepted in his father's, about coming back now because he was tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of letting other people's shame define him. We're quite a pair, she said, laughing despite the heaviness of the conversation. The invisible wife and the forgotten son. Then let's make a pact. He raised his glass. To being visible, to being remembered, to refusing to disappear just because it makes other people comfortable. She clinked her glass against his. To being seen. The food was incredible. The conversation was better. Minwoo was funny and sharp and surprisingly vulnerable. He told her about his girlfriend in Paris who'd left him because he couldn't give her a normal life. About his half-brother who he'd once idolized until Ji-Hoon made it clear Minwoo would never be real family. About his mother who died 5 years ago, broken by years of being the other woman. About how he understood what it meant to love someone who couldn't love you back. Is that what you're doing? He asked gently. Loving someone who can't love you back? She thought about lying, about protecting Ji-Hoon's privacy or her own pride. But the wine and the warmth and Minwoo's kindness made honesty easier. I don't know anymore. I thought I did. For a long time, I thought maybe if I was patient enough, good enough, quiet enough, he'd see me. But you can't make someone see you when they've decided you're invisible. And I'm tired of trying. Good. You should be tired. You should be angry. Minwoo leaned forward. My brother is brilliant and dangerous and completely broken. But that's not your responsibility to fix. You can't save someone who's drowning if they won't grab the rope. That's what his father said, that Ji-Hoon is a coward. He is, about this at least. About everything else, he's the bravest person I know. He'll walk into gunfire without hesitation, but the possibility of actually feeling something, that terrifies him more than any bullet. Minwoo's expression softened. Don't let his fear become your prison. You deserve better than that. They talked until the restaurant started closing, until they were the last table left, until the staff was politely clearing their throats. Minwoo drove her home and walked her to the door like a perfect gentleman. Thank you for tonight. I haven't enjoyed myself this much in years. Me neither. And it was true. She felt lighter than she had in months. Seen, heard, real. Can we do this again? Soon? His smile was hopeful. I promise I have more entertaining stories about my disastrous life to share. I'd like that. He took her hand and kissed it, a gesture that should have felt ridiculous but somehow wasn't. Until next time, sister-in-law. She watched him drive away, then turned to find Mrs. Choi waiting in the doorway. The older woman's face was troubled. Mr. Ji-Hoon came home an hour ago. He's in his study. He asked where you were. What did you tell him? The truth, that you went to dinner with his brother. Mrs. Choi wrung her hands. He was not happy. That's not my problem. She moved past Mrs. Choi into the house. But her heart was hammering. 3 years of being ignored and now suddenly Ji-Hoon cared where she was? No, absolutely not. He didn't get to care now, not when it was convenient for him. Not when it was about control instead of genuine concern. His study door was open, light spilled into the hallway. She could see him sitting at his desk, but he wasn't working. Just sitting there, staring at nothing. She should have gone straight to her room, should have avoided the confrontation. But defiance and wine made her brave. She stopped in his doorway. You wanted to know where I was? His head turned slowly. His eyes raked over her. The dress, the makeup, the way her hair fell loose around her shoulders. Something dark moved across his face. You went out with Minwoo. I had dinner with your brother. Is that a problem? He's dangerous. She laughed. Actually laughed. Everyone in this family is dangerous. You're dangerous. Your father is dangerous. The men who guard this house are dangerous. Why is Minwoo specifically a problem? Ji-Hoon stood, moved around the desk toward her. She'd never seen him like this. Uncontrolled, rough around the edges. Because he wants something. Minwoo always wants something. And right now, what he wants is to hurt me. By having dinner with me, that's a pretty weak revenge plot. You don't understand. He was close now. Close enough that she could smell whiskey on his breath. He'd been drinking again. You don't know what he's capable of. I don't know what anyone is capable of because you've kept me in the dark for 3 years. She held her ground, even though her legs wanted to back up. You don't get to care about this, Ji-Hoon. You don't get to suddenly be concerned about who I spend time with when you've made it very clear you want nothing to do with me. That's not true. Really? Then where have you been? Where were you yesterday? Last week? Last month? The only time you acknowledge I exist is at family dinners, and I stopped going to those. Her voice rose. You've ignored me for 3 years. You've treated me like I'm invisible. You've made sure I know exactly how much I don't matter to you. And now you're angry because someone else treated me like a human being? Because someone else made me feel seen for the first time since I married you? Something cracked in his expression. Pain. Real, genuine pain. I never meant... I don't care what you meant. I care what you did. And what you did was leave me alone in this house to slowly disappear. She felt tears threaten and refused to let them fall. Minwoo was kind to me. He talked to me like I mattered. He made me laugh. He made me feel like I exist. And if that hurts you, good. Maybe you'll understand a fraction of what you've put me through. She turned to leave. His hand shot out and caught her wrist. Not hard, not painful, just desperate. Don't what? Don't let him get close to you, please. His voice broke on the word. I know I have no right to ask. I know I've done everything wrong, but please, not him. Anyone but him. She looked down at his hand on her wrist. The first time he'd touched her with intention in 3 years. The first time he'd shown any emotion toward her at all. And it was this. Jealousy. Possessiveness. Not love, not genuine care, just male ego and territorial instinct. Let go of me. Not until you promise. I promise nothing. You have no claim on me beyond a piece of paper. You made sure of that. She pulled her wrist free. If you don't want Minwoo in my life, then you be in my life. You talk to me. You see me. You treat me like I'm your wife instead of your burden. Otherwise, stay in your study and leave me alone. She went to her room and locked the door, pressed her hands against it, waiting to hear footsteps, waiting for him to follow, waiting for him to choose her for once. But he didn't. The house went quiet, and she was alone again, just like always. The next morning, she woke to flowers, dozens of white roses filling her room. No note, just flowers. She wanted to throw them out the window, wanted to rage at the gesture that meant nothing because it came from nowhere. But they were beautiful, and she was tired of destroying beautiful things. So she let them stay and pretended her heart didn't ache. Minwoo texted her that afternoon, had coffee with your husband. He's not thrilled about our friendship. Want to grab lunch just to irritate him further? She shouldn't. She knew she shouldn't. This was clearly some kind of power play between brothers. Some old wound being reopened. She was just the tool they were using to hurt each other. But she was also a person. A person who'd been alone for 3 years. A person who deserved friends and laughter, and someone who made her feel real. Yes, she texted back. Tomorrow? His response was immediate. Perfect. I'll pick you up at noon. Wear something that will make Ji-Hoon's head explode. She found herself smiling, found herself looking forward to something, found herself, for the first time in 3 years, feeling like maybe she existed beyond these walls. Ji-Hoon was home that evening. He emerged from his study at dinner time, which never happened, sat across from her at the dining table while Mrs. Choi served food. The silence was excruciating. She focused on her plate, refused to be the one to break it, refused to make this easier for him. The flowers, he finally said. Did you like them? They were pretty. I'm not good at this. His hands were tight around his fork. I don't know how to do this. Do what? This. Whatever this is. Talking, connecting, being... He struggled for the word. Present. Then maybe you should practice with someone else. I'm done being your training ground. She took a bite of food she couldn't taste. 3 years, Ji-Hoon. 3 years you had to figure this out. Now you want to try because your brother showed me basic human decency? That's not how this works. I'm trying to apologize. I don't want your apology. I want time back. I want 3 years of my life I spent being invisible. Can you give me that? She set down her fork. No, you can't. So your apology means nothing. What do you want then? His voice was raw, frustrated. Tell me what you want and I'll do it. I want you to have wanted this 3 years ago. I want you to have chosen me before you had to. I want to matter to you for reasons that have nothing to do with your brother. She stood. But mostly, I want to stop caring about any of this. I want to move on, and I'm working on it. She left him sitting there and went to her room, sat on her bed surrounded by white roses that smelled like regret. Her phone buzzed. Minwoo, just wanted to say I'm glad we're friends. You deserve good things, simple words, kind words. Why did they mean so much coming from someone who barely knew her, and so little coming from the man she'd married? Lunch with Minwoo became a regular thing, twice a week. Sometimes at restaurants, sometimes at his penthouse where he cooked surprisingly well. He was easy to be around, made her laugh, told her stories about his years in Europe, asked about her classes and her work at the community center. treated her like a friend instead of a possession or an obligation. It felt normal. It felt safe. It felt like life. Ji-Hoon noticed. Of course he noticed. She could feel his attention like a physical weight. He started being home more, started appearing in rooms where she was, started trying to make conversation about nothing, about the weather, about her day, about anything except what actually mattered. She answered in polite monosyllables and moved away, gave him exactly what he'd given her for 3 years. Distance, ice, nothing. The flowers kept coming, white roses every few days. Still no notes, just flowers appearing in her room like apologies he couldn't speak out loud. She stopped moving them, let them pile up until her room looked like a funeral home. Let them die and wither because that felt appropriate somehow. Dead flowers for a dead marriage. Minwoo thought it was hilarious. He's courting you like a teenager. It's actually kind of adorable. It's too late. They were at his penthouse, sitting on his balcony overlooking the city. The view was stunning. Everything in Minwoo's life seemed to be stunning, like he'd deliberately built a world that was the opposite of his painful childhood. You don't get to ignore someone for 3 years and then decide you want them because someone else does. Is that what you think this is? Ji-Hoon wanting you because I'm around? Minwoo swirled his wine. Maybe. My brother's complicated. But I think it's more than that. I think you scared him. I scared him? How? By being good. By being kind. By being everything his mother saw in you. Minwoo's expression turned serious. Ji-Hoon has spent 17 years becoming exactly what this life demanded. Hard. Cold. Ruthless. Then you show up and you're this reminder that other things exist. Softness. Warmth. Hope. That's terrifying for someone who survived by killing all of that in himself. That's not my problem to solve. No, it's not. You've done your time. You've tried. Now you get to choose what comes next. He set down his glass and looked at her directly. Can I ask you something personal? You've been asking me personal things for weeks. This is different. He seemed almost nervous. What happens when the 3 years are up? Your visa situation, I mean. The marriage was for security and citizenship, right? What's your plan? She'd been avoiding thinking about it, avoiding the reality that her legal status was tied to Ji-Hoon. I don't know. Get a divorce, figure something else out. Maybe go back to America. Or, Minwoo said slowly, you could stay. Not with Ji-Hoon, but here, in Seoul. I have connections. I could help with the visa. Situation. You could keep teaching at the community center. Keep building the life you've started here. Why would you do that? Because you're my friend. Because you deserve better than being forced back to America. Because my brother can't get his head out of his ass. He smiled. And maybe because I like having you around. You make this city feel less lonely. Something warm bloomed in her chest. Gratitude, affection, relief at not being alone in this. Thank you. That means a lot. Good. Then it's settled. Whatever you decide about Ji-Hoon, you're not losing your life here. He raised his glass. To new beginnings. She clinked her glass against his and tried to ignore the small voice that said Minwoo's kindness was starting to feel like something more than friendship. The way he looked at her sometimes. The way he always made sure she was comfortable. The way his hand would brush hers when he handed her coffee. It was subtle. Careful. But it was there. And the worst part, she didn't entirely mind. After 3 years of being invisible, being seen felt good. Even if the person seeing her was doing it partly to hurt his brother. Even if it was complicated and messy and probably a terrible idea. It felt good to matter to someone. Sunday dinner came around again. She hadn't gone in weeks. But this time, Ji-Hoon showed up at her door 2 hours before. Please come today. Why? Because my father is announcing Minwoo's official return to the family. Because it will look strange if you're not there. Because, he paused, because I'm asking. Asking what? For me to perform again? To smile and pretend? I'm asking you to give me a chance to do better, in front of my family, in front of everyone. His eyes met hers, and for once, they weren't empty. They were pleading. Please. She should have said no, should have held her ground. But curiosity won. Curiosity about what Ji-Hoon thought doing better looked like, about how this would play out with Minwoo there, about whether 3 years of ice could melt in one dinner. Fine, but I'm doing this for me, not for you. I want to see Minwoo officially welcomed. Something flickered across his face. Jealousy, pain, but he just nodded. Thank you. The Kim family estate was more crowded than usual. Extended family she'd never met, business associates, important people whose names she didn't know but whose power was obvious. Minwoo was already there when they arrived, holding court in the sitting room, charming everyone the way he always did. His eyes found hers across the room and he smiled. Warm, genuine. Then he saw Ji-Hoon beside her, and the smile sharpened into something else. Challenge. Ji-Hoon's hand found the small of her back. She almost jumped. He'd never touched her like this before. Never done the small, intimate gestures that married couples did. His palm was warm through her dress. Possessive. She thought about pulling away, but dozens of eyes were on them and she'd agreed to play the role. So she let him guide her into the room, let him keep his hand on her, let everyone see that whatever they'd heard about the cold marriage, tonight was different. Brother. Minwoo approached them with a wine glass in each hand. He offered one to her, which meant she had to step away from Ji-Hoon's touch to take it. Smooth. Calculated. Sister-in-law, you look beautiful as always. Thank you. Congratulations on the official welcome back. About time, right? Only took father 28 years to admit I exist. Minwoo's tone was light, but the words had bite. He turned to Ji-Hoon. Thank you for bringing her. I know she's been boycotting these things. Must have taken quite a bit of convincing. She's my wife, of course she's here. Ji-Hoon's voice was flat, controlled, but she could feel tension radiating off him. Your wife who you've ignored for 3 years. But now that I'm back, suddenly you remember she exists. Funny how that works. Minwoo sipped his wine. Makes a man wonder what changed. Minwoo, her voice held warning. This wasn't the place, not with all these people watching. Sorry, you're right. Tonight is supposed to be happy. His smile returned, sharp and bright. Let me introduce you around. There are people who'd love to meet the woman who captured Ji-Hoon's heart. Even if he forgot to tell her. He offered his arm. She looked between the two brothers. Ji-Hoon's jaw was tight. His hands were fists. Minwoo was all casual charm, but his eyes held steel. This was a test. A challenge. A line being drawn. She could refuse Minwoo's arm and stand with Ji-Hoon. Play the dutiful wife. Keep the peace. Or she could take Minwoo's arm and make a statement. That she wasn't Ji-Hoon's possession. That 3 years of neglect had consequences. That loyalty wasn't automatic just because of a marriage certificate. She took Minwoo's arm. I'd love to meet people. Ji-Hoon's expression went absolutely blank. That cold mask slamming into place. She'd hurt him. Good. Let him feel what she'd felt. Let him understand that you couldn't ignore someone for years and expect them to just wait around. Minwoo led her through the crowd, introduced her to business partners and distant relatives, told stories that made her laugh, kept his hand on her arm the whole time. She could feel Ji-Hoon watching from across the room, could feel his eyes burning into her back, could feel the tension building like a storm. Dinner was excruciating. The seating arrangement put Minwoo directly across from them, put her between Ji-Hoon and an aunt who spoke no English, put her in a position where she had no choice but to engage with Minwoo while Ji-Hoon sat rigid beside her. Minwoo was in his element, witty, charming, directing most of his conversation at her, asking about her work, her classes, making her feel like the most interesting person at the table, while simultaneously making it clear to everyone there that Ji-Hoon had failed at something fundamental, Ji-Hoon's father watched it all with calculating eyes. Finally, he tapped his glass. The room went silent. A toast. To my son Minwoo. Welcome back to the family. Welcome home. Everyone drank. Then the old man's eyes moved to her. And to my daughter-in-law, who has shown remarkable patience with this family. May she continue to find reasons to stay. The words felt loaded, like he knew something, like he saw the cracks that were becoming canyons. She smiled politely and drank while Minwoo caught her eye across the table and mouthed, "Breathe." After dinner, people mingled. Ji-Hoon was pulled away by business associates. She found herself on the terrace with Minwoo, looking out at the gardens lit up like something from a fairy tale. "You're playing with fire," she said quietly. "I know. This thing between you and Ji-Hoon, I'm not a pawn." "No, you're not." He turned to face her. "But you're also not his possession, and he needs to understand that. He had 3 years to treat you like you mattered. He didn't. Now he doesn't get to be angry when someone else does. Is that what you're doing? Treating me like I matter? Or are you just trying to hurt him?" Minwoo was quiet for a long moment. "It started as the second thing. I won't lie about that. I've wanted to hurt Ji-Hoon for a long time, for a lot of reasons. And when I found out he had this beautiful, kind wife he was ignoring, it seemed like perfect ammunition." He met her eyes. "But then I actually met you, and you weren't ammunition. You were a person, a good person who deserved better. And somewhere along the way, this stopped being about him and started being about you." "What does that mean?" "It means I like you, actually, like you. Not as a tool to hurt my brother, not as revenge, just you." His hand came up slowly, giving her time to move away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek. "I like the way you laugh, the way you care about your students, the way you're strong even when you're hurting. I like spending time with you, and I think you like spending time with me too." Her heart was hammering. This was dangerous. This was complicated. This was everything she shouldn't want. But she was so tired of being alone, so tired of not mattering, so tired of waiting for Ji-Hoon to wake up. "Minwoo, I'm not asking you to decide anything tonight. I'm just being honest." His hand dropped. "But I want you to know, if you want more than friendship, I'm here. If you want to divorce Ji-Hoon and start over, I'll help you. If you want to stay married and just have someone in your life who sees you, I can do that too. Whatever you need, I'm here. That's not fair to any of us." "Probably not. But nothing about this situation is fair." He smiled sadly. "Think about it. No pressure. Just know you have options." "Are you trying to seduce my wife?" Ji-Hoon's voice cut through the night like ice. He stood in the terrace doorway, backlit by the house lights. She couldn't see his expression, but she could hear the rage underneath the control. Minwoo didn't even flinch. "I'm having a conversation. You remember those, right? Things people do when they actually care about each other?" "Get away from her." "Or what? You'll do something you regret, in front of all your father's guests?" Minwoo took a deliberate step closer to her. "She's not your property, brother. She's a person, with choices, with agency. And right now, she's choosing to stand here talking to me because I treat her like she exists." Ji-Hoon moved fast. One moment he was in the doorway. The next, he was across the terrace with his hand fisted in Minwoo's jacket. "I said get away from her." "Ji-Hoon, stop." She put her hand on his arm, felt the muscles coiled like springs. "Let him go." "Did he touch you?" Ji-Hoon's eyes were on Minwoo, but his question was for her. "Did he put his hands on you?" "That's none of your business." "The hell it's not. You're my wife. In name only, you made sure of that." She pulled at his arm. "Let him go. You're making a scene." "Good. Let everyone see. Let everyone know that you're mine and he needs to back off." Minwoo laughed. Actually, laughed even with Ji-Hoon's fist in his jacket. Mine? You can't claim something you've never wanted. You can't be jealous of losing something you threw away. She stopped being yours the moment you decided she didn't matter. Ji-Hoon drew back his fist. She screamed. Security came running. Ji-Hoon's father appeared with half the dinner party behind him. The scene froze, the two brothers locked in violence, her standing between them, everyone watching. Enough. The old man's voice cracked like a whip. Both of you. Inside. Now. The study was silent except for the sound of 3 people breathing hard. Ji-Hoon stood by the window, hands shaking with adrenaline. Minwoo leaned against the desk, dabbing at a split lip. She stood by the door, wanting to be anywhere else. Ji-Hoon's father sat in his chair like a king on a throne, eyes cold and assessing. Explain. One word, loaded with threat. He was touching her. Ji-Hoon's voice was raw. He was trying to... I was having a conversation with my friend. She cut him off. That's all. Minwoo has been kind to me. He's treated me like a person. And Ji-Hoon can't handle that someone else sees value in what he's ignored for 3 years. The old man's eyes moved to her. Is this true? You and Minwoo are friends? Yes, sir. How friendly. Heat rose to her cheeks. We have lunch. We talk. That's all. That's not all. Ji-Hoon turned from the window. He wants her. Anyone can see it. He's been circling like a predator since the moment he got back. And whose fault is that? Minwoo's voice was sharp. You had 3 years to be a husband. You chose not to. You don't get to be angry when someone else steps into the void you created. You're using her to get to me. Maybe I was at first, but not anymore. Minwoo looked at her. She's not a weapon. She's a person I care about. Something you'd understand if you were capable of caring about anyone except yourself. Ji-Hoon moved toward his brother. She saw violence in his eyes. Real violence, the kind that came from years of living in blood. Don't you dare! Sit down. The old man's voice stopped Ji-Hoon mid-step. Both of you, sit. They sat. Grown men who commanded empires, reduced to obedient sons. She stayed by the door, feeling like this was a conversation she shouldn't be part of. But the old man gestured to a chair. You two, this concerns you most of all. She sat. I knew this marriage was a mistake. The old man's words fell like stones. I told your mother, God rest her soul, that forcing Ji-Hoon into this wouldn't end well. But she insisted. She thought this girl could save him, could bring light into his darkness, could make him human again. His eyes found Ji-Hoon. She was wrong. You made sure of that. Father, I'm not finished. The old man's hand slammed on the desk. 3 years. 3 years. This woman has lived in your house like a ghost. 3 years she's played the role of wife while you treated her like furniture. 3 years she's kept her promise to your dying mother while you spat on that promise every single day. His voice rose. And now, Minwoo shows her basic human decency, and you have the audacity to be jealous? To act like you have claim to her? You disgust me. The words hung in the air. She'd never heard anyone talk to Ji-Hoon like this. Never seen him look so small. He stared at his hands, jaw working, saying nothing. And you, the old man turned to Minwoo. Don't think I don't see what you're doing. This isn't about her. This is about your brother, about finally having something he wants, about revenge for every slight, every rejection, every reminder that you're the bastard son. Minwoo opened his mouth, but the old man kept going. I'm not blind. I know you're using her. Maybe you've convinced yourself you care. Maybe you actually do, but the foundation is rotten and everyone knows it. Minwoo's expression hardened. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? The old man laughed bitterly. Nothing about this family is fair. Nothing about what I did to your mother was fair. Nothing about what happened to Ji-Hoon's mother was fair. And nothing about what you've both done to this woman is fair. He turned to her. You're the only innocent in this room. The only one who didn't choose this life. The only one who actually tried to make something good out of a bad situation. And now, you're caught between two broken men who are using you to hurt each other. Tears burned her eyes. She blinked them back, refused to cry in front of them. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me what you want. Not what they want. Not what my late wife wanted. What you want. His voice softened. You've spent 3 years living for everyone else. What do you want for yourself? The question cracked something open. She looked at Ji-Hoon, who still wouldn't meet her eyes. Looked at Minwoo, who watched her with something that might be love or might be obsession. Looked at the old man who'd built this empire of blood and broken people. I want a divorce. Silence. Complete. Utter silence. I want out. Her voice grew stronger. I want to stop being a pawn in whatever game this family's playing. I want to stop waiting for Ji-Hoon to decide I matter. I want to stop wondering if Minwoo actually cares or if I'm just revenge. I want my life back, whatever that looks like. Whatever that means, I want it to be mine. No. Ji-Hoon stood. No, you can't. I can. I am. She stood too. You don't get to say no. You don't get a vote anymore. You made your choice 3 years ago when you decided I was just a contract. Now I'm making mine. I'll fight it. I'll make it impossible. You'll let her go. The old man's voice was final. You'll give her the divorce. You'll make sure her visa situation is handled. You'll give her whatever financial settlement she wants. And you'll do it quietly and without drama. Father, please. This is your fault. You destroyed this marriage before it began. You broke your promise to your mother. You failed this woman in every way possible. The old man's voice was ice. Now you'll do the one decent thing you're capable of. You'll let her go. Ji-Hoon looked at her. Really looked at her. She saw everything in his face. Panic. Regret. Pain. All the feelings he'd kept locked away for 3 years suddenly right there on the surface. Please. Please don't do this. I can change. I can be better. Just give me time. I gave you 3 years. Her voice broke. 3 years was all the time you get. I'm done. She walked out. Left all 3 of them in that study. Left the party and the guests and the performance. Called a car. Went back to the house that had never been home. Started packing. For real this time. Not slowly, not carefully. Just throwing things into suitcases because she needed to move. Needed to do something. Needed to feel like she had control over any part of her life. Mrs. Choi found her surrounded by half-packed bags, crying into a dress. The older woman didn't say anything, just sat on the bed and pulled her close. Let her sob into her shoulder like a child. I tried. I really tried. I did everything she asked. But it wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. You were always enough. Mrs. Choi stroked her hair. He was the one who wasn't. He was the one who failed. Not you. Never you. Then why does it hurt so much? Because you have a good heart. Because you hoped even when you shouldn't have. Because you're human, and humans hurt when they lose things. Even things that were never really theirs. Mrs. Choi pulled back, wiping tears from her face. But you're strong. Stronger than any of them. You'll survive this. You'll do more than survive. You'll thrive. I don't know where to go. Yes, you do. You have your apartment picked out. You have your classes. You have your work at the community center. You have a life waiting. Mrs. Choi smiled sadly. And you have me. I'll help you move. I'll help you start over. You're not alone. She cried harder. From relief this time. From gratitude. From the overwhelming weight of knowing someone actually cared. Someone actually saw her. Someone actually wanted to help without expecting anything in return. A knock on the door interrupted them. Mrs. Choi went to answer it. Low voices. Then she came back. Mr. Minwoo is here. He wants to talk to you. She wiped her face. Tell him I'll be down in a minute. Minwoo waited in the living room, tie loosened, looking as wrecked as she felt. He stood when she entered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never wanted... It's not your fault. It is, though. At least partly. He ran his hands through his hair. I knew what I was doing. I knew using you to get to Ji-Hoon was wrong. I wanted him to hurt the way I've hurt. The way his mother's death hurt my mother. The way being the bastard son has hurt me. I wanted him to know what loss felt like. And now we all hurt. Congratulations. She sat on the couch. Everything in her body felt heavy. Your father was right. You both used me, one through neglect and one through attention. But I was never a person to either of you. Just a tool. That's not true. Not anymore. He knelt in front of her. I meant what I said on the terrace. I care about you. Actually care. Not as revenge. Not as a weapon. Just you. I don't know if I believe that. Then let me prove it. Come stay at my place while you figure things out. No strings, no expectations. Just a friend helping a friend. I have plenty of space. You can have your own room, your own life. I'll stay out of your way. Why would you do that? Because you need help and I'm offering it. Because I owe you that much after dragging you into this mess. Because, he paused, because I think we could be good for each other. If you'd let us try. When you're ready, if you're ever ready. She studied his face. Tried to see past the charm to whatever was underneath. Tried to figure out if this was genuine or just another game. What do you actually want from me, Minwoo? Honestly, I don't know yet. I know I like spending time with you. I know I think about you constantly. I know that when I heard you ask for a divorce, my first thought was relief that maybe now you could be free, could choose for yourself instead of being trapped. He took her hands. I know this started wrong. I know I have a lot to prove. But I want to try. I want to be someone you can count on, someone who sees you, someone who treats you right. I need time. I need space. I need to figure out who I am without this marriage hanging over me. I understand. Take all the time you need. The offer stands, my place, your own room, no pressure, just support. He squeezed her hands and stood. Think about it. Let me know. After he left, she sat in the quiet living room, surrounded by dead roses and broken promises. Thought about Minwoo's offer. Thought about the apartment she'd picked out. Thought about starting over alone versus starting over with someone. Thought about whether she could ever trust another Kim brother after what the first one had done to her. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Please don't go. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm begging. Please. Ji-Hoon. She stared at the words. 3 years of silence, and now he could text. Now he could beg. Now he could show feeling. Too late. All of it. Too late. She blocked the number. The next morning, she called the lawyer. Started the divorce paperwork. Called the landlord about the apartment. Started making plans that were just hers. Started building a life that didn't include waiting for someone to notice she existed. Mrs. Choi helped her pack. Security helped her load boxes into a car. She took only what was hers. Left behind all the expensive gifts. Left behind the designer clothes Ji-Hoon's stylist had picked. Left behind everything that wasn't real. Everything that wasn't earned. Everything that was just costume for a role she was done playing. The house felt like a museum as she walked through it one last time. Beautiful and cold and empty. She'd lived here for 3 years, but it had never been home. Home was supposed to feel safe, warm, full of love. This had been a prison with nice furniture. She found Ji-Hoon in his study. He looked like he hadn't slept. Looked like someone had taken him apart and put him back together wrong. He stood when she entered. You're really leaving. I'm really leaving. I don't know how to fix this. Tell me how to fix this. His voice was desperate, broken. I'll do anything. Anything you want. Just please don't go. You can't fix it. Some things stay broken. She set an envelope on his desk. Divorce papers. Your father's lawyers already have them. Sign them. Let me go. Let us both move on. I can't. I can't let you go. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're scared. You're finally feeling something after 3 years of nothing, and it's terrifying, and you want to stop it. But you can't stop it by keeping me here. You can only make both of us more miserable. She moved toward the door. Goodbye, Ji-Hoon. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. I hope it makes you happy. I hope it was worth it. Wait, he grabbed her arm, gentle, pleading. Just answer one question. Please. Just one. She stopped, didn't turn around. What? If I had done this differently, if I had let you in from the beginning, if I had been the man my mother hoped I could be, would you have loved me? The question broke her. She turned to look at him, saw tears in his eyes, real tears from a man she'd thought incapable of crying. I already did. 3 years ago, when I agreed to marry you, when I hoped you'd see me, when I tried to reach you. Her voice cracked. I loved you, Ji-Hoon. I loved who I thought you could be, who your mother said you were, and you killed that love day by proving it was based on nothing real. His face crumpled. I didn't know you felt. You didn't care to know. That's different. She pulled her arm free. Sign the papers. Move on. Be the ice prince everyone thinks you are. Just let me go. She walked out, got in the car, drove away from that house, and that life, and that man who'd finally learned to feel just in time to lose everything. She didn't look back. Couldn't look back. If she looked back, she might change her mind, might give in to the tears on his face, might believe that 3 years of nothing could be erased by one moment of real emotion. But she was done believing in might-be's, done hoping, done waiting. She was choosing herself. Finally. Completely. And if that meant being alone, then she'd learn to be alone. She'd been alone for 3 years anyway. At least now she'd be alone without pretending otherwise.